Section 26 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Buchanan. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bencraft Joly. Chapter 12, Part 1. Wang Xifeng maliciously lays a trap for Chia Jui, under pretence that his affection is reciprocated. Chia Tianxiang gazes at the face of the mirror of voluptuousness. Lady Feng, it must be noticed in continuation of our narrative, was just engaged in talking with Peng Er, when they heard some one announce that Mr. Jui had come. Lady Feng gave orders that he should be invited to step in, and Chia Jui, perceiving that he had been asked to walk in, was at heart elated at the prospect of seeing her. With a face beaming with smiles, lady Feng inquired again and again how he was, and, with simulated tenderness, she further pressed him to take a seat, and urged him to have a cup of tea. Chia Jui noticed how still more voluptuous lady Feng looked in her present costume, and, as his eyes burnt with love, "How is it," he inquired, "that my elder brother Secundus is not yet back?" "What the reason is, I cannot tell," lady Feng said by way of reply. "May it not be," Chia Jui smilingly insinuated, "that some fair damsel has got hold of him on the way, and that he cannot brook to tear himself from her to come home?" "That makes it plain that there are those among men who fall in love with any girl they cast their eyes on," hinted lady Feng. "Your remarks are, sister-in-law, incorrect, for I'm none of this kind," Chia Jui explained smirkingly. "How many like you can there be?" rejoined lady Feng with a sarcastic smile. "In 10, not one even could be picked out." When Chia Jui heard these words, he felt in such high glee that he rubbed his ears and smoothed his cheeks. "My sister-in-law," he continued, "you must of course be extremely lonely, day after day." "Indeed I am," observed lady Feng, "and I only wish some one would come and have a chat with me to break my dull monotony." "I daily have ample leisure," Chia Jui ventured with a simper, "and wouldn't it be well if I came every day to dispel your dullness, sister-in-law?" "You are simply fooling me!" exclaimed lady Feng laughing. "It isn't likely you would wish to come over here to me." "If in your presence, sister-in-law, I utter a single word of falsehood, may the thunder from heaven blast me!" protested Chia Jui. "It's only because I had all along heard people say you were a dreadful person, and that you cannot condone even the slightest shortcoming committed in your presence, that I was induced to keep back by fear; but after seeing you, on this occasion, so chatty, so full of fun, and most considerate to others, how can I not come? Were it to be the cause of my death, I would be even willing to come." "You're really a clever person," lady Feng observed sarcastically, "and oh, so much superior to both Chia Jung and his brother! Handsome as their presence was to look at, I imagined their minds to be full of intelligence; but who would have thought that they would, after all, be a couple of stupid worms without the least notion of human affection." The words which Chia Jui heard fell in so much the more with his own sentiments that he could not restrain himself from again pressing forward nearer to her; and as with eyes strained to give intentness to his view, he gazed at lady Feng's purse. "What rings have you got on?" he went on to ask. "You should be a little more deferential," remonstrated lady Feng in a low tone of voice, "so as not to let the waiting maids detect us." Chia Jui withdrew backward with as much alacrity as if he had received an imperial decree or a mandate from Buddha. "You ought to be going," lady Feng suggested, as she gave him a smile. "Do let me stay a while longer," entreated Chia Jui. "You are indeed ruthless, my sister-in-law." But with gentle voice did lady Feng again expostulate. "In broad daylight," she said, "with people coming and going, it is not really convenient that you should abide in here; so you had better go, and when it's dark and the watch is set, you can come over and quietly wait for me in the corridor on the eastern side." At these words, Chia Jui felt as if he had received some jewel or precious thing. "Don't make fun of me," he remarked with vehemence. "The only thing is that crowds of people are ever passing from there, and how will it be possible for me to evade detection?" "Set your mind at ease," lady Feng advised. "I shall dismiss on leave all the youths on duty at night, and when the doors on both sides are closed, there will be no one else to come in." Chia Jui was delighted beyond measure by the assurance, and with impetuous haste he took his leave and went off, convinced at heart of the gratification of his wishes. He continued, up to the time of dusk, a prey to keen expectation, and when indeed darkness fell, he felt his way into the Jung mansion, availing himself of the moment when the doors were being closed to slip into the corridor, where everything was actually pitch dark, and not a soul to be seen going backwards or forwards. The door leading over to dowager lady Chia's apartments had already been put under key, and there was but one gate, the one on the east, which had not as yet been locked. Chia Jui lent his ear, and listened for ever so long, but he saw no one appear. Suddenly, however, was heard a great sound like "lo tung," and the east gate was also bolted. But though Chia Jui was in a great state of impatience, he none the less did not venture to utter a sound. All that necessity compelled him to do was to issue, with quiet steps, from his corner, and to try the gates by pushing. But they were closed as firmly as if they had been made fast with iron bolts; and much though he may, at this juncture, have wished to find his way out, escape was, in fact, out of the question. On the south and north was one continuous dead wall, which even had he wished to scale, there was nothing which he could clutch and pull himself up by. This room, besides, was one of the interior, of which was exposed to the wind, which entered through the fissure of the door, and was perfectly empty and bare; and the weather being at this time that of December, and the night too very long, the northerly wind, with its biting gusts, was sufficient to penetrate the flesh and to cleave the bones, so that the whole night long he had a narrow escape from being frozen to death; and he was yearning, with intolerable anxiety, for the break of day, when he espied an old matron go first and open the door on the east side, and then come in and knock at the western gate. Chia Jui, seeing that she had turned her face away, bolted out like a streak of smoke, as he hugged his shoulders with his hands from intense cold. As luck would have it, the hour was as yet early, so that the inmates of the house had not all got out of bed; and making his escape from the postern door, he straightway betook himself home, running back the whole way. Chia Jui's parents had, it must be explained, departed life at an early period, and he had no one else, besides his grandfather, Tai-ju, to take charge of his support and education. This Tai-ju had, all along, exercised a very strict control, and would not allow Chia Jui to even make one step too many, in the apprehension that he might gad about out of doors drinking and gambling, to the neglect of his studies. Seeing on this unexpected occasion that he had not come home the whole night, he simply felt positive in his own mind that he was certain to have run about, if not drinking, at least gambling, and dissipating in houses of the demi monde, up to the small hours; but he never even gave so much as a thought to the possibility of a public scandal, as that in which he was involved. The consequence was that during the whole length of the night he boiled with wrath. Chia Jui himself, on the other hand, was in such a state of trepidation that he could wipe the perspiration off his face by handfuls, and he felt constrained, on his return home, to have recourse to deceitful excuses, simply explaining that he had been at his eldest maternal uncle's house, and that when it got dark, they kept him to spend the night there. "Hitherto," remonstrated Tai-ju, "when about to go out of doors, you never ventured to go, on your own hook, without first telling me about it; and how is it that yesterday you surreptitiously left the house?" For this offence alone you deserve a beating, and how much more for the lie imposed upon me!" Into such a violent fit of anger did he consequently fly, that laying hands on him, he pulled him over and administered to him 30 or 40 blows with a cane. Nor would he allow him to have anything to eat, but bade him remain on his knees in the court conning essays, impressing on his mind that he would not let him off, before he had made up for the last 10 days' lessons. Chia Jui had, in the first instance, frozen the whole night, and, in the next place, came in for a flogging. With a stomach besides gnawed by the pains of hunger, he had to kneel in a place exposed to draughts, reading the while literary compositions, so that the hardships he had to endure were of manifold kinds. Chia Jui's infamous intentions had at this junction undergone no change, but far from his thoughts being even then any idea that lady Feng was humbugging him, he seized, after the lapse of a couple days, the first leisure moments to come again in search of that lady. Lady Feng pretended to bear him a grudge for his breach of faith, and Chia Jui was so distressed that he tried by vows and oaths to establish his innocence. Lady Feng, perceiving that he had, of his own accord, fallen into the meshes of the net laid for him, could not but devise another plan to give him a lesson and make him know what was right and mend his ways. With this purpose, she gave him another assignation. "Don't go over there," she said, "to night, but wait for me in the empty rooms, giving on to a small passage at the back of these apartments of mine. But whatever you do, mind, don't be reckless." "Are you in real earnest?" Chia Jui inquired. "Why, who wants to play with you?" replied lady Feng. "If you don't believe what I say, well, then don't come." I'll come, yea, I'll come, were I even to die!" protested Chia Jui. "You should first at this very moment get away," lady Feng having suggested. Chia Jui, who felt sanguine that when the evening came, success would for a certainty crown his visit, took at once his departure in anticipation of his pleasure. During this interval, lady Feng hastily set to work to dispose of her resources, and to add to her stratagems, and she laid a trap for her victim; while Chia Jui, on the other hand, was, until the shades of darkness, a prey to incessant expectation. As luck would have it, a relative of his happened to likewise come on that very night to their house, and to only leave after he had had dinner with them, and at an hour of the day when the lamps had already been lit; but he had still to wait until his grandfather had retired to rest, before he could, at length, with precipitate step, betake himself into the Jung mansion. Straightway he came into the rooms in the narrow passage, and waited with as much trepidation as if he had been an ant in a hot pan. He however waited and waited, but he saw no one arrive. He listened, but not even the sound of a voice reached his ear. His heart was full of intense fear, and he could not restrain giving way to surmises and suspicion. "May it not be," he thought, "that she is not coming again, and that I may have once more to freeze for another whole night?" While indulging in these erratic reflections, he discerned some one coming, looking like a black apparition, who Chia Jui readily concluded in his mind must be lady Feng; so that, unmindful of distinguishing black from white, he, as soon as that person arrived in front of him, speedily clasped her in his embrace like a ravenous tiger pouncing upon its prey, or a cat clawing a rat, and cried: "My darling sister, you have made me wait till I'm ready to die!" As he uttered these words, he dragged the comer, in his arms, on to the couch in the room, and while indulging in kisses and protestations of warm love, he began to cry out at random epithets of endearment. Not a sound, however, came from the lips of the other person, and Chia Jui had, in the fulness of his passion, exceeded the bounds of timid love, and was in the act of becoming still more affectionate in his protestations, when a sudden flash of light struck his eye, by the rays of which he espied Chia Se, with a candle in hand, casting the light round the place. "Who is in this room?" he exclaimed. "Uncle Jui," he heard some one on the couch explain, laughing, "was trying to take liberties with me." Chia Jui at one glance became aware that it was no other than Chia Jung, and a sense of shame at once so overpowered him that he could find nowhere to hide himself. nor did he know how best to extricate himself from the dilemma. Turning himself round, he made an attempt to make good his escape, when Chia Se with one grip clutched him in his hold. "Don't run away," he said. "Sister-in-law Lien has already reported your conduct to madame Wang, and explained that you had tried to make her carry out an improper flirtation with you; that she had temporised by having recourse to a scheme to escape your importunities, and that she had imposed upon you in such a way as to make you wait for her in this place. Our lady was so terribly incensed that she well nigh succumbed, and hence it is that she bade me come and catch you. Be quick now and follow me; let us go and see her." After Chia Jui heard these words, his very soul could not be contained within his body. "My dear nephew," he entreated, "do tell her that it wasn't I, and I'll show you my gratitude to morrow in a substantial manner." "Letting you off," rejoined Chia Se, "is no difficult thing; but how much, I wonder, are you likely to give? Besides, what you now utter with your lips, there will be no proof to establish; so you had better write a promissory note." "How could I put what happened in black and white on paper?" observed Chia Jui. "There is no difficulty about that either," replied Chia Se. "Just write an account of a debt due for losses in gambling, to some one outside, for payment of which you had to raise funds by a loan of a stated number of taels from the head of the house, and that will be all that is required." "That is, in fact, easy enough," Chia Jui having added by way of answer. Chia Se turned round and left the room; and returning with paper and pencils, which had been got ready beforehand for the purpose, he bade Chia Jui write. The two of them, Chia Jung and Chia Se, tried, the one to do a good turn, and the other to be perverse in his insistence, but Chia Jui put down no more than 50 taels, and appended his signature. Chia Se pocketed the note, and endeavoured subsequently to induce Chia Jung to come away; but Chia Jung was, at the outset, obdurate and unwilling to give in, and kept on repeating: "To morrow! I'll tell the members of our clan to look into your nice conduct." These words plunged Chia Jui into such a state of dismay that he even went so far as to knock his head on the ground; but as Chia Se was trying to get unfair advantage of him, though he had at first done him a good turn, he had to write another promissory note for 50 taels, before the matter was dropped. Section 27.